I have to admit, I underestimated that sword of yours. Good job, Clyde remarked as he recovered from the attack. Despite bleeding profusely, he barely winced or showed any sign of panic. What kind of opponent was this? Are you all right? Kevin didn't deny what Clyde said. Instead, he took the initiative to check on Clyde's condition. After all, this was just a competition, and he didn't want to kill him. Perhaps you should pay attention to yourself. It seems like you don't have the strength to keep using your sword for long, and I don't have much time left to waste with you. Clyde's face suddenly turned serious. He took a deep breath and took a fighting stance. The clothes on his upper body had been torn apart, revealing his strong muscles. This drew the screams of many women watching. If you want to fight, then let's continue. But before we do, I just have one request. Can you put on a new shirt? My wife is watching. Kevin teased Clyde as he tried to buy as much time as possible to recover. Shut up! I better teach you a lesson for not taking me seriously. Clyde fumed with anger when he heard that. He then jumped up into the air with enormous force, hurtling towards Kevin with immense speed. Kevin had underestimated Clyde's speed and was caught off guard. He could only raise the knight sword in defense, but it was too late. With just one punch to his stomach, he was sent flying more than 10 yards away. As he lay on the ground, Kevin spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt that his internal organs were still trembling from the impact. Kevin, didn't I tell you that I'd teach you a lesson? Now it's time to shut that mouth of yours while I knock you out. Clyde jumped up high again and raised his fist as he aimed for Kevin's head. Still struggling to get up, Kevin didn't have the time to resist and just rolled to the side instead, barely dodging Clyde's attack. As this went on for a while, all of the students watched Kevin rolling on the ground again and again to avoid getting hit by Clyde's punches, and this made them laugh so hard that their faces were about to cramp up from the joy of seeing him suffer. Mike, look at how that useless son-in-law is rolling around on the ground like a puppy. He's really a disgrace to our class, Lionel shouted as he pointed at Kevin. I think he knows that he's overestimated his own abilities and that he's clearly no match for Clyde. He'll probably start begging for mercy any second now. Had Professor Murdoch asked me to fight earlier, even though I wouldn't have won first place, I wouldn't have done such an embarrassing thing, Mike said with a look of disdain on his face. Professor Murdoch must have been fooled by Kevin. I hope Clyde can finish the job and beat that. It's time to get rid of that stain from our healing arts school, Luther sneered. Other than Dalton and Penny, everyone else in Kevin's class felt that he was just embarrassing himself at this point. Moreover, they were mad at him for humiliating his entire class in front of so many top leaders and students from other schools. By now, the entire arena had been battered by Clyde's strikes. As another one of Clyde's heavy punches landed on the ground, Kevin's entire body was covered in a layer of dust. Do you finally understand who you're up against? In the face of my absolute strength, anything you do is futile, so you better give up now while you still can. Clyde twisted his neck and cracked his knuckles. You haven't won yet, so why are you already talking like you did? This battle isn't over just yet. Kevin stabbed the knight sword into the ground and used it to support his body as he stood back up. Do you think you can hurt me in the slightest? This gash that you gave me earlier was barely an inconvenience. Clyde looked at Kevin as he taunted him. Why don't I just stand where I am and let you strike me again with that sword of yours? Hit me with your best shot. Are you sure about that? If you say so. Kevin then took out 2 pills from his pocket and popped them in his mouth, allowing him to recover his strength and speed in no time. Clyde didn't answer Kevin's question, he just threw his head back in laughter. He had seen Clarissa taking a pill out of desperation during her battle with Kevin, so he believed that Kevin was doing the same thing and would soon be on the verge of defeat as well. Just then, Kevin suddenly changed his strategy and switched weapons as he placed the knight sword on his back and retrieved the Night Dagger from his pocket. He then started sprinting towards Clyde. "What is that useless son-in-law thinking, switching for a much smaller and weaker weapon? He must have been beaten so badly that he can't think straight anymore," Mike scoffed. "Why doesn't he just beg for his life and surrender? Maybe he really does have a death wish," Lionel remarked. "You're right. Plus, he even took some pills just now, but for what? Does that think that he can still win? With Clyde's strength and physique, it's impossible to break through his defense, with or without the help of those pills. He's practically immune to any form of pain," Luther added. Meanwhile, the leaders from the top 10 organizations had also been discussing Kevin's actions. However, unlike the crowd, they were actually praising him. "Looks like Kevin has really smart instincts. That was some quick thinking." Harley Shepard clapped his hands happily. "The 2 herbal pills he just took should help Kevin rapidly recover his strength and heal his injuries. If I'm right, it's very likely that he took Supreme pills, whose ingredient list had been lost from our official records for many years." Nadia Alexander's eyes were filled with mixed emotions. Didn't she want to kill him just earlier? In fact, Nadia still had about half a sentence that she didn't dare to say out loud. If those pills were indeed refined by him, Kevin is indeed worthy of being recognized as the herbalism genius that our leader wants to recruit. Compared to Harley and Nadia, Wayne Ford's words were much more succinct. "Now that's a winning strategy." Renee Silver and the other school leaders looked at each other and saw some doubt and uncertainty in each other's eyes. Although they could see that Kevin had found a way to stay alive by taking some Supreme pills, they didn't know exactly what he was planning to do. Why did he opt to change his weapon back to the Night Dagger? And what strategy was Wayne talking about? Could he really pull off a win? Jeffrey Bowie was especially bothered by this. The Southeast School for Natural Medicine had always prided themselves on their intensive strength training program. On top of that, Clyde had mastered the iron wall technique, so no matter how sharp the sword or dagger in Kevin's hand was, it couldn't break through his student's defense. If that was the case, then why was Wayne so sure that Kevin could win? Back in the arena, Kevin had just used the Night Dagger to attack Clyde. "Are you just tickling me again, you The disdain in Clyde's eyes intensified. Kevin's dagger strike had given him the feeling of a slight itch. Initially, Clyde thought that Kevin was qualified to be his opponent. However, over the course of their battle, it seemed that Kevin only relied on the bladed weapon in his hand. Was this the same Kevin that had deliberately chosen to spare his opponent's life during the first round? Clyde was beginning to think that Kevin was just a one-hit wonder, or worse, a fluke without any real talent. Convinced that Kevin wasn't on the same level as him, Clyde even started to look down on him and feel sorry for him. Thinking that Kevin didn't have much fight left in him, Clyde simply shrugged. "I can see that you're really trying your best to keep fighting, so I'll be nice. Like I said earlier, I'll just stand here and let you attack me as much as you want with your dagger. I'll only make my final move after you've used up all your strength. That way you can lose with some dignity, knowing that you've given it your all." However, Kevin revealed a playful smile when he heard this. As he continuously struck Clyde's body with the Night Dagger, he was feeling more powerful and quicker than ever. Maybe he still had a chance to win. In order to quickly recover his strength and heal from his injuries, Kevin took 2 Supreme pills, then changed weapons as he switched back to using the Night Dagger. Clyde had begun to feel sorry for Kevin and dared him to keep attacking until all his strength was gone. Sensing that Clyde was underestimating him, Kevin took advantage of the opportunity as he continuously targeted Clyde's body, feeling more powerful and quicker than ever. By then, most of the other battles had already ended, and the remaining contestants couldn't help but watch what was happening inside the green arena. However, their focus wasn't on Kevin, but on Clyde. The Southeast School for Natural Medicine was a school that none of its rivals could look down on. Moreover, the remaining contestants couldn't imagine a scenario where Kevin would win. And since the next round's matchups had yet to be finalized, they all viewed Clyde as a potential opponent. So they figured it would be a good idea to watch him closely so they could be better prepared if they had to face him. Roughly 30 seconds had passed, and Kevin was still going at it, relentlessly attacking Clyde with the Night Dagger. As this went on, the crowd started to burst into laughter. "This is getting funny. Is that piece of going to tire himself to death?" Lionel snickered. "This is embarrassing for our class. He should have just listened to Professor Murdoch and forfeited instead of letting his arrogance drag us all down." Mike shook his head. "Now all the rival schools will see our healing art school as a joke. He single-handedly tarnished our reputation. If he doesn't drop out, he better get expelled," Luther jeered. Despite all the hate that he was receiving from the crowd, Kevin didn't care what the others said. With the Night Dagger in his hand, he just kept his focus on attacking Clyde non-stop with all his strength. Meanwhile, the discussion amongst the leaders watching from the platform had a much different tone to it. "What kind of sword-fighting technique is Kevin using? Why haven't I seen it before?" Wayne Ford was quite stunned by what he saw. "I've been studying different sword-fighting techniques for decades, but I've never encountered such swift and powerful moves like that before. It's simply marvelous," Paul Vaughn admitted as he watched Kevin intently. "He must have learned it from somewhere." Renee Silver had an extremely sour expression on her face. "I think so too. Moves like those require some sort of special training," Paul replied. "Perhaps he has been secretly trained in martial arts for years. And have you all forgotten? He's done so many immoral things. If we don't get rid of him as soon as possible, he'll eventually become a huge threat to us in the future," Jeffrey Bowie argued angrily and unfairly. "Jeffrey's right. We have to capture this guy and interrogate him. For all we know, he could have already joined the other side, serving as a spy for the Myriads or the Alliance." Paul spoke again. His true goal was to obtain Kevin's legendary weapons and learn his sword-fighting technique. If he succeeded, the Central Alternative Healing Academy would definitely be able to dominate the world in the future. When she heard this, Renee nodded her head in agreement, and the same greedy look emerged in her eyes. Suddenly, someone in the crowd suddenly gasped. "I can't believe it! It looks like Clyde is going to lose." Everyone turned their eyes to Clyde, whose right knee was now bleeding profusely. "All right, that's enough. This has been going on for too long and you're starting to get annoying," Clyde shouted. He stopped defending himself and swung his fist at Kevin. Upon doing so, he could feel an intense pain in his right knee. At the same time, Kevin managed to sidestep Clyde's fist and then kick him hard in the knee. The crisp sound of bones breaking echoed throughout the entire stadium. Everyone was surprised to see that Kevin had kicked Clyde to the ground. A minute had passed, but he still couldn't get up. Then a painful cry came out of Clyde's mouth. "My knee! What did you do to it?" "You told me to keep attacking, right? Your knee suffered hundreds of thousands of strikes. It seems that even the iron wall technique has a breaking point." Kevin wiped the blood from his mouth and explained with a smile. "That's impossible. No one has ever been able to break through my defense. What kind of sorcery is this?" Clyde kept shaking his head. The once confident expression in his eyes had slowly turned into fear as he nursed his mangled knee. "Don't worry. What doesn't kill you will only make you stronger." After saying these words, Kevin smiled as he walked away and left the green arena. The entire crowd was silent. Even though the referee had yet to recover from his shock, everyone was well aware of the outcome of the battle, and no one dared to mock Kevin for being a useless piece of. Jeffrey quickly left the stands and ran to the green arena to check on Clyde's injuries. Thankfully, according to the medical staff, he had only suffered a dislocated right kneecap, which would fully heal in about 6 to 8 weeks. "I'm sorry I failed you. I gravely underestimated that guy," Clyde called out in a daze. "That's okay." Jeffrey smiled bitterly inside. He helped a student up as they slowly walked out of the green arena. Just then, the referee came back to his senses. "Kevin is the winner of this match." Up in the stands, Wayne asked, "This is the guy everyone calls a piece of. I don't care what anyone else thinks. He's got a special talent." Many of the top leaders around him lowered their heads, including Renee. Even though she had a lot to say, she decided to lay low for now to avoid provoking Wayne. As Kevin returned to his seat in the crowd, Dalton patted his shoulder and exclaimed, "Kevin, you're so friggin' awesome." "That was nothing," Kevin replied with a faint smile. "What is there to celebrate? The competition isn't over yet, and you'll still have to fight other contestants from other schools," Mike said with an indignant and mocking tone. Out of all the students at the Healing Arts School, nobody had wanted Clyde to beat Kevin to death more than Mike. Before Dalton could say anything to teach Mike a lesson, Kevin just waved his hand gently. "Thank you for your reminder." This response made Mike's face turn even uglier. He couldn't accept the fact that his insults no longer affected Kevin. After the second round of the competition, all of the remaining contestants were given an extra 10 minutes to rest. Kevin didn't pay attention to anyone else, and he just sat calmly in his seat with his eyes closed while he recharged his batteries. Soon the host appeared once again with the microphone in his hand. He announced the start of the third round, where Kevin was going to fight Sebastian Young, a representative of the Southwest School of Healing. "Kevin, I advise you to surrender now. Did you hear who your opponent is going to be?" Mike immediately sneered. "I have no idea who he is, but how are you so sure that I'll lose this time?" Kevin's voice wasn't loud, but the surrounding people could clearly hear him. They began to look at him as if he were a fool. "Kevin, don't you know how powerful the people from the Southeast School of Healing are?" Professor Murdoch cautioned. "Just because you managed to last for 2 rounds, now you think you're so unbeatable?" Lionel said in disgust. "You've had quite a run, but your luck is just about to run out against Sebastian. You should back down now and admit defeat if you still want to live," Luther added. Dalton had wanted to speak on Kevin's behalf, but when he thought about Kevin's opponent, even he began to have some doubts. "But I'm sure I'll be all right." Kevin patted Dalton's shoulder and walked quickly towards the blue arena. When Kevin entered, he saw a young man standing in the middle of the arena. "I can tell that you're very strong." Before Kevin could say anything, Sebastian was already sizing him up. "Thank you. I've heard a lot of good things about you as well," Kevin replied. "It's really surprising that someone like you defeated Clyde, but while that guy has a strong body, he's not exactly the brightest. I'm glad that you beat the hell out of him," Sebastian remarked. "I hope I won't have to beat you up as badly." Kevin slowly drew the Night Dagger from his pocket. Would he be able to get past his next opponent? Kevin was able to defeat Clyde by breaking through the Iron Wall technique's defense to dislocate his opponent's kneecap, which rendered him unable to stand. Shortly after Kevin was declared the winner, the third round was set to begin, where he would be facing Sebastian Young from the Southwest School of Healing. Heavily favored to win the whole competition, the undefeated Sebastian was trained by Wayne Ford himself and was his school's best fighter. Shortly after Kevin entered the blue arena, their battle was about to begin as he drew the Night Dagger from his pocket. "Is that the legendary Night Dagger?" A brief look of envy burst out from Sebastian's eyes. "Yes, it is. I'm surprised you know what it is." Kevin was slightly surprised by this. "My mentor told me a thing or two about it. Anyway, I'm curious. Why do people keep calling you a useless son-in-law?" Sebastian said with a faint smile. "Be careful. The last person who spoke like that has already been eliminated from the competition," Kevin replied coldly. Watching from the platform, Renee spoke with a cold smile. "Looks like that going to die for sure today." She wished that Sebastian could end Kevin's life in an instant with one swift sword strike. "It's a pity that such a talented young man has chosen to embark on a point of no return. If only we had crossed paths sooner, I would definitely have been able to show him a better path," Paul Vaughn commented. Kelly Emmett, who was standing beside Director Silver, clenched her fist tightly. She didn't know exactly what had happened to Kevin. However, she heard the rumors about Sebastian, who was set to play a pivotal role at the Southwest School of Healing in the future. Back at the blue arena, Sebastian suddenly moved so quickly that everything happened in a flash. Within the span of just 1 second, he managed to draw a sharp sword from his back and slash through Kevin's jacket. However, it was only 2 seconds later when everyone heard the sound of the sword being drawn and struck. Sight before sound? How is that even possible? Both Paul and Renee stood up in disbelief almost at the same time. Wayne, you're not only powerful above us all, you've also trained your students well. The future of the Southwest School of Healing is truly in good hands, Jeffrey Bowie exclaimed. I'm just doing my job, all for the greater good. Wayne was so happy that he couldn't contain himself. However, all the other experts just looked at him coldly. Can you pretend to be a little bit more humble? Meanwhile, Kevin was shocked. He didn't think it was humanly possible to move so quickly either. Looks like I've just mastered the swift sword technique. Today I shall use you to test this with my sword. Sebastian's cold voice resounded across the entire venue. This caused a huge commotion in the crowd as everyone started talking about it. The Southwest School of Healing really trains its students like no other, an onlooker praised. Why did that line sound so familiar to me? The person beside him wondered. How can you not be familiar with it? It's more or less the same thing Kevin told Clyde earlier, the onlooker replied. Kevin didn't really care about what other people said about him. At the moment, he was too focused on Sebastian and his swift attacks. No matter how quickly he tried to dodge Sebastian's strikes, he couldn't avoid getting cut by his opponent's sword. On the other hand, Sebastian comfortably stood where he was. As he continuously struck Kevin with his sword from all directions, he was beaming with joy. He had been trying to master the swift sword technique for a while now, so he was pleasantly surprised to have achieved this just a few moments ago. Now it seemed that his matchup with Kevin would be his easiest battle of the day. Thus, he had already begun to think about the finals of the competition. And with this newfound skill of his, he felt that the championship was already his for the taking. By now, Kevin's clothes had been cut into rags. This caused the crowd to laugh and ridicule him even more. It seems that Kevin will soon find a new low, going from a useless son-in-law to a full-fledged beggar, Lionel mocked. Don't be silly. Even a beggar would be insulted if he were to be compared to someone like Kevin. That man is truly the lowest of the low, Mike sneered. Have some heart, guys. My dog has a few old clothes that no longer fit. I'll just donate them to him out of charity, Luther sarcastically offered. With Kevin unable to match Sebastian's quickness, he was like a wooden pole that was being held up, under the mercy and control of his opponent. Despite this, Kevin's body wasn't damaged at all. This was because the body armor that the Alliance leader had given to him had been protecting him the whole time. Otherwise, who knows how long he would have lasted against Sebastian's continued sword strikes. Kevin, if you don't know what's best for you, just get down on your knees and admit defeat. Let all the leaders and people watching know that you have lost to me, and I shall spare you from any further harm. Besides, it won't be shameful to lose against an undefeated opponent, Sebastian said with a self-righteous expression. Do you think I'm really afraid of you? You may have destroyed my clothes, but you haven't really hurt me in any way. Perhaps you're the one who's afraid of me, Kevin coldly replied. Hearing this, Sebastian was stumped. What Kevin said was exactly what puzzled him. With his swift sword technique, tearing someone into shreds within seconds should have been a piece of cake. However, Kevin had been trapped in his flurry of sword strikes for nearly a minute now. And although he looked pathetic, he wasn't injured at all. If this continued for much longer, Sebastian knew that no matter how powerful he was, he would eventually succumb to his own exhaustion, potentially making him vulnerable to defeat. You forced me to do this! Sebastian suddenly stopped attacking. He then closed his eyes and started to draw all of his inner strength. What other tricks does he have up his sleeve? Kevin wondered. With Kevin's current strength, using the Night Sword would only allow him a single strike before becoming depleted. He felt that this was too risky. especially against Sebastian. Given the circumstances, he had to stick with the Night Dagger. Suddenly, Kevin remembered something. He had recently studied how to perform the fiery dagger technique, but he had never tested it in action. At this point, it was all or nothing, so he was willing to give it a shot.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.